Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis from Drone Camps, and I took some time to write down some top 10 beginner FPV pilot mistakes that you guys might make when you're first getting into flying quadcopters. There's a lot of them out there, some really cool ones out there. We're all excited about all the different quads out there, and sometimes we get in a little bit of a rush to get out and fly these things. So these are a few common mistakes that people make, and maybe a few that you haven't seen. I'm going to show you right now. Now, one of the biggest beginner mistakes getting into flying FPV quads is buying from the wrong dealer or website. There's a lot of websites out there that just don't offer good support. They take way too long to ship to even get you a shipping notification. There's a lot of dealers out there that will sell you something and then it doesn't work, and then you don't get a replacement for it, or you can't prove to them that something was wrong with it. So there's a couple companies that are very, very trustworthy and rock solid that I've used over the years, and one of the first ones in this list is going to be getfpv.com. You can check them out. They have a ton of stuff on their website. They're out of Florida in the USA. You can call these guys up on the phone and they're all really, really nice and personable. And the cool thing about GetFPV is most of them are pilots and most of them know how to fly. They're into the FPV lifestyle and the community, and they respond with a lot of really good information, articles. They also even have a website with different DIY videos for you to check out. Also on our list is going to be Horizon Hobby. Horizon Hobby has been around for over 10 years in the industry. You can rely on Horizon Hobby. There are some haters out there, but mostly lovers of Horizon Hobby. They do wonderful RTF, bind and fly, plug and fly, all kinds of different quads, planes, helis, and all kinds of cool stuff. They also have their own line called Blade, so you can check them out on horizonhobby.com. Now, next up on our list is going to be Pyro Flip. You can rely on Serge over there. He is in LA, California. You want to talk to someone really cool and a great shop? Talk to Pyro Flip. Very, very awesome shop. He's been around since the early days of helis, single rotor helis, and he knows his quad stuff, guys. We would say HobbyKing.com, one of the also old school standards in the hobby, been around for a long, long time. And also GearBest.com. I have to mention GearBest because some people ask me all the time on the channel, oh, can I rely on GearBest? How long does the shipping take? The shipping, depending on where you live in the US, if you live on the West Coast, it might take a week to two. If you live on the East Coast, it might take 3 weeks. So don't get too worried if you order something way out from China. It has to come in on a boat. But depending on where you live, it could take a little bit of time to get to you. So that's the price you pay when you want to get something for a really good deal. Next up on our list is forgetting to set up your failsafe on the bench before you go out and do your first maiden flight. This is really important because if you don't do this, you could possibly have a flyaway. Now, the way to do this, to check it, take your props off on the bench and go ahead and turn on your radio and your quad together. And let's go ahead and fire up the motors, get them running. Once they're running, go ahead and turn off your radio, and they should come to a complete stop, just like that. If you don't see your quad do that, you have issues, and if it happens out in the field, it can continuously keep the same throttle value as it had the last throttle value from the radio to the receiver on the quad. It might think that it's going to be stuck in that, so you don't want that to happen, and I've had that happen to me before, and I had a real problem. Almost lost my quad. Now, with this situation, once you do that on the bench, you have everything good to go here. You can also set up a secondary failsafe inside the Taranis Plus. If you go in here into the menu, once we go into the menu here, go down to the very bottom, and in failsafe mode, make sure you set your failsafe mode on your receiver to no pulses. If you do that, that'll be another system for providing an adequate failsafe on your FPV quad. Pretty cool. Now, the next big fail is actually hooking up your USB cable and plugging your quad into Clean Flight and not removing your props. You go into Clean Flight to make some quick settings. You're indoors, you're inside the house, maybe you're going to test your motors. Don't do that. Remove your props. Make sure indoors, always, always, I'm telling people, remove the props. If you're going to work on your quad and plug it into Betaflight, make sure that you take your props off, because you could look like this guy if you don't. So very, very important tip. Indoors, guys, keep your props off. Outdoors, put them back on and fly to your heart's content. The next thing beginners do is they put their props on wrong. Sometimes when you go to the field to make that Maiden of your first quadcopter build, you get all excited because you've done all this work on putting everything together, and you get out there and the last thing you do is put your props on. So make sure your props are on right before you spool up for the first time, because if you have your props on wrong, this is a right turn. If I put this one on this motor right here and I spool this quad up, it's going to violently flip across the ground and have some serious issues. Now I know I have two different styles of props here sitting on the bench, but this is just for a show and tell for you guys. Now, the way you remember this is right turn rear. So if you look at the right rear motor, it's always going to be a right turn, usually, generally with beta flight and clean flight. Motor number 1, motor number 2, motor number 3, and motor number 4. Motor number 1 back here is going to be right turn. We'll put that prop on just like that. Now, the next motor over, diagonal from that, that's also going to be a right turn. Now, obviously your other two motors are going to be left turn. So go ahead and put those left turn props on those two motors. Now you can also, like I said, you can check this in beta flight. And if you look at these props, there's a couple ways to tell that a prop spins a certain direction. There's a series of numbers on there, sometimes the manufacturer name, dial prop on this one, and it says 5048 in R. That means that this is a right turn prop, so it's spinning this direction clockwise. And you can also tell by looking at the prop physically. If you look at the front of the leading edge here, it has a little lip and it's kind of curved up here. You can see that curve. That's the leading edge, and that's the direction that's going to lead as the prop turns. The trailing edge will obviously be the back and more sharp part of the blade. Next on our list is the 600 milliwatt transmitter. This little guy is notorious for taking people's video feeds right off their goggles. If you power this up next to somebody at the field, you're going to completely wipe them off the map. They won't be able to see a thing in their goggles except for your video feed. This is a really powerful module. 600 milliwatt is great if you fly by yourself or if you fly in a huge open field with no one else around. That is a great transmitter. But if you're going to be flying around other people at local clubs and fields, you want to make sure that you get a 600 milliwatt transmitter that's switchable. If you buy one that's standalone 600, you're stuck with it. This one happens to be switchable from 25 milliwatt down up to 600, so that's great. If I show up at the field, I can switch this one down to 25 milliwatt. I can get with the race coordinator and I can make sure that I'm on my own private channel, that I don't overlap anyone else's video. So very important beginner tip. Make sure you buy something that's in the 200 milliwatt range if you want to start out and fly with other people. Very, very important tip for new guys. Now the next beginner mistake is not checking your motors before you go out on your maiden flight. Very important inside clean flight or beta flight to check your motor direction. If you go down to the motors tab, you click on that, and once you're in that motors tab, check that little button down there on the far right that says I won't kill myself on the bench here or make it fly up and hit myself in the face by testing my motors. I won't put props on. Make sure you have your props off, of course. Now what we do here at the Drone Camps Workshop is we take a little bit of tape, some Scotch tape, painter's tape is even better, and we put it on the motor stem. That way I can see which way it comes to a stop once I spin this individual motor up. That's pretty important that you know that this is going to spin the right direction. If it's spinning to the left, this is my right rear motor. If that is spinning to the left, I know it's on wrong and I'm going to crash on my maiden flight of this quad. So I don't want to do that. I want to make sure it's spinning the right direction. Now you can also change and reverse motor direction inside the BL Heli suite. So if you download BL Heli suite in the Chrome web store, you can change your motor directions there as well. So pretty cool. The hardest way to change motor direction would be to swap two wires here from your motor to your ESC. Next on our list is wearing your goggles on your maiden flight of your brand new quad. Never ever wear your FPV goggles when you're first testing out a quad that you've never flown before. This is very, very important. There could be all kinds of things wrong with a brand new build, or even on something like an RTF that came from China or our local hobby shop. So very, very important. Fly this line of sight first. Keep your eyes on it. Keep your goggles to the ground beside you and fly it from your transmitter without looking at your FPV first. You can check on your FPV signal after you've done your maiden flight on this, and you'll be much safer. If you fly this for the first time inside the goggles, chances are something could be wrong on there. There's a whole bunch of things that could be wrong. It could fly off and hit somebody else, or even worse, yourself. So be very careful when you're going out to maiden test your first quadcopter. If you're just getting into this, this is a very important tip. Never ever wear your goggles on the maiden flight. Go ahead and line of sight test it first. Now, another tip for beginners, and this might not be a mistake that you're going to make. It might not be a mistake that someone you know has made, but this could happen to anyone. Do not pick up someone else's quad that is turned on and is live on the field. This is very dangerous because number one, they might not know that you picked it up. Number two, you might actually have a short somewhere on the quad, or they might have a problem, or someone might accidentally hit the throttle and they're going to rip you a new one with their prop on the motor. So these nylon props are actually really sharp, and they will cut you. And the reason that I'm saying this is a friend of mine, probably 3 years ago now, went over and picked up my quad, and my quad had landed near some water and it was having some issues, and it was kind of acting all crazy, and it just boom, all of a sudden spooled up on him, and it cut his hand pretty good. So be very careful that you don't pick up someone else's live quad. Now, next up on our list is getting your orientation wrong on your flight controller. When you're building your quad, pay close attention that you get your orientation on your flight controller correct, because if it's wrong, you'll have a violent crash on the ground. And I've done this myself. I am a victim to it. I have done it, especially you new guys. If you're just starting out, pay attention to the little black arrow. It could be white, depending on what color your flight controller is. This little black arrow right here tells me that this is going to be the direction of travel. This is the front, and this is the rear, right, and left over here. So that's kind of your little north facing arrow there. Front of the quad, back of the quad. Pretty easy. Now, depending on your situation, if you have this USB cable right here, this port is covered by something and you want it to flip it 90 degrees, make sure that you set that up in beta flight or clean flight. And on the yaw axis, you want to make that a -90 or a +90, depending on which direction you turn it. Now, you're not going to have it like this, and you're not going to mount it like that. Most cases you're not going to do that, so you only have to set that up on the yaw axis. But this is pretty important for your first quadcopter build, flight controller orientation. All right, guys, next up on the list, and I know this is kind of mean, but you know what? Don't let your bro fly your favorite quad, or even one of your quads that you don't want to break. If you let someone else fly your quad and they break it, it's your problem, not theirs. So if you spent 6 to 10 hours working on a new build, you have it out there for the first day like I did. I let one of my bros fly my quad and he flew it into a tree and broke the motor. Not such a big deal, but I had to wait another week to get another motor. So that sucked. And I had worked so long on that little mini quad to get it ready and get it up in the air. So, you know, you might not want to let your bros fly your quad. Just a little friendly advice. Keep the sticks on your fingers, and if you crash it, it'll be your problem. All right, guys, that has been our top 10 beginner FPV pilots mistakes for the Drone Camps channel. Guys, I had a lot of fun coming up with these for you. I sat with a friend the other night and we talked about this. There's a lot of videos out there. I believe Bardwell's done his own version, and we all have something different to add to the community. So I wanted to add my own and what I thought were big time beginner mistakes, and some are pretty important that you kind of go and make sure that you yield to some of these suggestions. They are only suggestions, of course, but if you do follow them, you will have a much better experience as a new pilot. So thanks again, you guys, for hanging out on the Drone Camps channel. Sorry about my sloppy riding there. I'll see you on the next one.